Fellas. We got a
Yo,
crew
yo,
in
yo.
here tonight.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Guys, everybody knows as you join in tonight, make sure you hit that 25K Crop Connection. We're about 12,000 subscribers on YouTube and nearing the 51,000 subscribers here on Facebook. Dust Ash. No yawning.
Yeah, I thought you was gonna
No
catch
yawning. I
that.
was going to catch you. But
How'd you
also, we
go?
got a really good show lined up tonight. And, I'm trying to keep things fresh and different here on the Today's Bite every week. And kind of thought about shooting docks. And this ninja right here I've got in front of me kind of come to my
Whoa.
mind. And I said, let's get Joe on here. And sure enough, we got Joe. Go ahead and do a little introduction to yourself and tell
Here
everybody where
I
you're
am
from
over here in
and what you
Georgia,
do.
waiting to feed y'all some stuff to where maybe y'all can catch some more fish.
Heck yeah, I
Hey,
appreciate
Matt.
that.
Matt England says the Ninja Warrior.
The-
Whoa.
Yeah.
you know,
Oh,
we think of this topic, and I almost even struggled when I typed this in this afternoon as far as shooting docks because I know Dustin really wouldn't get the subject line. He wanted to name it shooting piers. I mean, I don't get it, but
yeah. Whatever. Hey, Joe. Joe?
Yeah.
What do you call them? Docks or piers, buddy?
Well, I've been across the country a couple times, and when I went to Lake Fork, I saw that the walkways were like 50 yards long.
yeah,
So I understand why they call them piers sometimes. You know what I mean?
Fair
But
enough. Fair enough.
they don't say pier shooting; they say dock shooting.
There. I
that's what
like
I
that.
thought. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
we'll see if we get Dustin to kind of understand what we're talking about, Joe, tonight.
Yeah.
Since we're not actually shooting piers, but we're going to talk about shooting docks. And also, when I think of Joe, it's not only shooting docks that this guy is really good at, it's actually shooting jigs. And that would even probably fit it just as well. And even Joe and I was talking this afternoon even about it. And we're going to discuss it. But he's not only shooting docks, he's shooting other stuff as well. But
Oh
like I
yeah.
said, Joe, tell us all about yourself, man. I know some of the guys actually have seen you before on Crappie Connection, but let's hear a little bit more.
All right. Well, I live over here in Georgia. I fish several lakes. I started shooting docks 19 years ago. A guy took me out there, and first time I went, he caught 47, I caught 27, and I was hooked.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the beginning of it. You got to have some coordination to do it. To release it at the same time that you release the line on the spool. But I mean, I love it. It's very exciting when you shoot it out there and you see that line jump. But it's evolved, with live scope. I used to just try to set up a milk run in lakes so that I could go out there and catch me a limit. But now that the live scope has come out, or forward fishing, it's changed everything. Now, and what you were referring to is instead of overhand casting to fish, to brush piles and to open water fish, I shoot at them.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I do that is because it's I'm a lot more accurate with it, landing it where I need to land it out
Yeah.
there. And as far as well, there's three reasons. When you overhand cast all the time, that's why I stopped. I'm 65 years old, so that's why I stopped bass
Whoa.
fishing. Yeah, so that's why I stopped bass fishing. Yeah, old guys can do it. But anyway, so that's why I stopped bass fishing because my shoulder was wearing out. So shooting it was cool. That saved my shoulder. And then now there's guys that cast and overhand cast to them. But and if you're in any kind of wind, and it seems like every time I'm in a tournament, it's 20-mile-an-hour
Yeah.
winds. But your line
Absolutely.
gets caught and it drags it away from your target. You know what I mean? So the shooting, you sort of it gets you under that wind some. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why I like to do it, and that's why I feel that I'm pretty accurate with it.
All
Well,
right.
Joe,
Real
you're going to
quick.
be our guest this week. But I want to go ahead and let you introduce our today's bite fish reports and kind of tell how you've been catching them over there in Georgia and what lakes you've been fishing, and give us a go ahead rundown on what's going on over there in your neck of the woods.
Okay, well, back behind me is Lake Sinclair, and it's dammed. And there's another lake called Lake Oconee, and they're power lakes. So they pull back and forth. You know what I mean, to generate power. But
Mm-hmm.
that's the two lakes that I normally guide and fish on. Um, but so they what was the other question?
What your
Well,
fishing report? What lakes you been fishing?
Oh,
And
fish
what?
report. Okay.
Yeah,
So what's happened is the fish have stopped. It's post spawn. Okay. So they're done. They're done with the banks. There is some males on the banks guarding the beds. You can still cast to them if you know the right spots. But the water temp is getting to be about 68 to 70 degrees, 72 in some shallow spots, and so that's about over also. So what I found in the last couple of days is that the fish have moved under the, I would call them medium docks. Okay, you got docks that are 4 to 8 foot. That's the shallow docks. The 10 to 14-foot docks. That's your medium docks. And then in the summertime, they move. They want to get into that cooler water, so they get down into those deeper docks. And that's the 14 to 20-foot docks. But I feel that the better docks are the ones that are in a little bit of current and that are close to channels.
really.
yeah, I
So
mean, just typical
vary with
crappie sound like.
does that vary with water clarity, the depths of docks they get in, or does that matter ever?
That doesn't matter too much. These lakes over here, they don't get as muddy as them lakes out west. I've really learned that in
Mm-hmm.
tournaments. But yeah, these it's real. You got to have like a 6 to 8 inch rain to muddy them up enough to where it affects the bite, and then it takes about 3 days for the mud to settle down. You know what I mean? And then them to be able to see the jigs good again, and I can cast at them.
Sweet, gotcha.
I know for me, and Dustin, I can go ahead, or you can go ahead as far as your today's bite fishing report. But my fishing report, and I'm gonna kind of kick back from last week, and it's really I see the same thing, but I'm fishing mainly anywhere from about 8 foot to about 15 foot of water. These fish, we've got some pre-spawn fish, we got some spawn fish, but also we've got post-spawn. We've got everything you can imagine as far as the spawn going on here on Ross Barnett. These fish, the current kind of comes in and it slows them back down, or the lake gets muddy and they kind of hold back things. I think this spawn this year is going to be really drawn out. I think we'll still be catching fish probably in the end of May for sure, still spawning.
Yeah,
But
that's because this weather has been going back and
man,
forth.
it's
You know what I
just
mean,
like
and
a
it's
roller
confused
coaster.
these fish. And I hope that a lot of them don't end up stuck with eggs. You know what I mean?
It can
Because they
happen.
could. Yeah, I mean, I believe I see it happening. Some of these fish that we're cleaning still have eggs in them. And the spawn should be over by now. None of them are bulging, but
Yeah.
the blackfish, their guts don't get as big as those whitefish over there. They're just that's just the way it is. I mean, but yeah, you can tell
Their
when you're
shoulders
catching a
do
male,
though.
and you can,
Them shoulders get thick though.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the blackfish bite.
Oh
But
yeah.
Our
I
black
love.
crappie here are pretty much all the way done spawning. They wrapped it up probably 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Did
They
you
kind of
notice?
kicked into gear early March here, and
You notice
they
them
wrapped it
empty of
up.
eggs when you clean them?
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
or very little. I mean, some of them might have just a smidget left in them, but
Yeah,
not very much.
most of the spawn's done, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm catching a
Oh,
lot that are spewing out of them. I mean, when you pull them up, they're falling out of the fish, and there's a lot of fish getting caught on the banks right now. So it's got to be going strong right now.
Well, the
What's
full
the
moon,
temperature over there, Dustin?
The water's 64 right now.
Okay.
So, but it
the
was
full
up to
moon's Thursday, I
67.
believe.
It was up to 67, 68, but now it's back down to 64. But they're just starting to really hammer them off the banks. Actually, they've been hammering off the banks for about 2 weeks now, really.
Right.
So I'm hoping they're still just doing their thing. But I have not cleaned a female that's been emptied yet. I mean, they're all pretty full. There's been a few that I can tell you they dumped 3/4 of their eggs out. Not all of them, but most of them.
Right.
Like I was saying, these fish, I'm finding some fish on brush piles, stumps, open water suspended. It seems
Breeder
to
stump?
me that the fish are fairly boat spooky. So we're having to, long pole them with 18-foot black diamond or either cast to them. And last Friday on a guide trip, it took me a little while to actually really key on it. We started casting and started catching way more fish just for the simple fact that the fish are so boat spooky. and it made
Is
all the
that
difference in the world.
is that from pressure, Brad?
You know, I can't really say that. The lake gets a lot of pressure. I mean, there's crappie fishermen from one end to the other of the lake.
Right.
But I don't know what it's making them all. They just seem very spooky this spring. And, you know, I think maybe just Mother's Nature's way of protecting fish even more. I can't say live scope, you know, caused it or not, but fish do seem very spooky this year to me here on the Ross Barnett. But, you know, fishing's been good. It's going to continue to be good. Personally, I cannot wait until the spawn is over. I think even, guys, if you're watching right now and you're sick of the spawn, let's do a hashtag spawn. Come on, get over with. Or let's think of something catchy for us to spawn. I am so over it right now. I'm ready for the post spawn and summertime pattern.
Yeah, well, over here, that's what they do. They get all over brush and they get all over wood, and it's a lot easier to get catch the fish, you know, and under the docks
Yeah.
Right now, what happens normally is the big females will come up underneath the docks, right, you know, when it's about 58, 56 degrees, and they'll go in there and they'll be rooting around, and then after they lay their eggs, they'll move out and the male will move in. Once the male guards the nest for a while, then all of a sudden the little small fish will come in there and you'll weed through them. And then after that, then the medium-sized fish start showing up and you start having a good time. And that's where we're at right now in Georgia.
Man, that's nice.
Oh yeah. I hope we get a good spawn too. You guys got me so nervous because this my lake gets a lot of pressure too, and I hope that they get a strong spawn to keep it going.
Right. The weather has been rough.
Today's Black Fish Report.
Yeah, my fish report's a lot like your guys's, honestly. The fish, though, during the spawn is pretty good here because I can catch them on the banks a lot. I mean, the water's clear and they're pushed up certain areas, pea gravel banks.
That's got to be a blast.
Oh, my gosh, man. It's as fun as you can have.
It's so fun to watch that.
Here's what I say. You ready? This is my favorite
watch
saying.
that cork go.
It's as much fun as you can have with your clothes on.
Whoa.
Okay? Yeah, that's what it is. But no, we ain't using a cork right now. We're actually just throwing the swimming minnow, casting it to the bank, and just slow cruising it back. And man, we've been smoking them doing that. So that's been fun. The evenings do a lot better though on a bank bite, and then the staging fish in that 15 to 20 foot water are a lot better. But that's what we've been doing. Like yesterday, we caught a limit pretty fast on staging fish. And I say staging 8 to 10 foot of water, and on brush piles, laydowns will be full of fish, and then we'll slide up to the banks, have a little fun before we roll in. Because the bank fishing can be wishy-washy. You might murder them one day and then go there the next, and they ain't a fish there. So I hate to just throw all my eggs in that basket. Staging fish are a lot more, and I say staging. You know, I think they're spawning out there in 10 to 15 foot of water too with this clear water. I think we're catching spawning fish just as well, the same.
You know, even another thing, and a buddy of mine, Chad Wright, that fishes with me a good bit around here. We talked about it this afternoon. We'll go through a flat, and all of a sudden you see out in front of you, you won't see any fish. Or if you see any, they'll be right hugging on the bottom. But I can go like 100 yards, turn the boat around, and go back the same stretch I just come through, and it seems like fish are laying on the bottom, and they kind of pop up.
Yeah.
It's kind of a neat scenario that as that boat comes over the top of them, they'll rise and start trying to ease away from it. But if you spin your boat back around, even an area you might go through, not even see anything on your screen, you'll go back through it, and all of a sudden there's fish starting to appear. I think they just kind of come up from the bottom after that boat passes over the top of them.
We've had guys in major tournaments do that on purpose just to get the fish to rise up, you know?
Yeah, and they say it worked.
And that's what I saw last week, even today, some that you say this spot, this ledge or whatever I'm fishing is just, everything has the keys to being a really good spot, and you won't see anything over it. I'll turn the boat right back around, go right through it, and all of a sudden there's fish appeared. I'm like, all right, they're laying on the bottom. I'm just bumping them up off the bottom, and then you can wind up catching them a lot of times. One of the things I did last week, and man, I seen probably the biggest crappie I've ever seen on forward facing sonar live scope, and I chased this fish for a quarter of a mile.
Man.
And the fish got me in the end because I finally gave up, and I was like, man, I'm gonna tire this fish out. But I never did. You think a fish would slow down and actually stop, but this fish ran anywhere from a mile and a half, and I clocked it up on my GPS as I'm going behind it at 1.88, smoking it. And
That
never
reminded me of a friend. We were fishing a tournament, and I told him, I says, I saw a big fish and it kept moving away from him. We couldn't catch it. I said, man, that's a carp, man. Quit worrying about that fish.
Yeah.
That's I needed to say that.
And then after we done with the tournament, a guy says, "Man, them fish them 2-pounders look just like carp." I'm like, God dang,
Yeah.
we should have stayed on that fish longer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh,
You
that
know,
was for Richard Malcolm.
if it would have been a tournament, I'd have probably. And I told the guy fishing with me, I said, if this was a tournament today, well, I'd fish for this one for 6 hours straight if I had to.
Man, I'm telling you,
it.
I've chased them crazy like that before, to where you know, actually, Josh, I seen he's on here. I seen him comment. Me and him did that Grenada tournament here just recently. We were chasing a fish, and I'm not kidding you. If we didn't chase it for 30 minutes, it was longer. 30 minutes is a long time to chase a fish.
Yeah.
And we chased it, and I put bait on her and bait on her and bait on her, and she turned up one time, and my heart just stopped, and then she kept swimming. And I chased her at least 1.5, 2 mile per hour, over and over, and I quit. I gave up. I may have said a bad word, said done with her, because I told him this fish is going to help a lot. And then she's just floating out there. When I turned the trolling motor, I said, one more time. Let me try one more time. I dropped it down. She touched it. I caught her. And it was the 342.
Whoa.
So I gave up on her and went to turn the boat, and the wind blew me a little bit. I said, let me try her one more time. And she turned up and ate that sucker.
So that reminds me of that big fish that I caught at Darbone that time. It came off of a tree, a lay down. You know what I mean? And it was on top of that lay down. And I cast it at it, and it hit it, and it let it go, and it went back down. It went right back down to the tree, and I said, "Oh my God!" Man. So Brandon Threadgill, he reached down and grabbed a rod and he cast it. I said, "Wait a minute, hold on, man, that's my fish. That's my fish." So I went over and I cast it again. The guy said, "Just get the net." You know what I mean? So I cast it again. I caught that dang fish. Net. And, man, when you catch, you guys are in better water than over here in Georgia. We don't. It's very rare to catch a 3-pounder, you know.
Oh, same
so
here.
When that dang fish came out, it looked like a different kind of species.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
And I'm like, what in the world?
Them eyeballs,
oh my God.
Them eyeballs look like golf balls on the side.
I wanted to leave. Big old marbles. You know them jumbo marbles when you were a kid?
Yeah.
I wanted to leave, man. I'm like, oh my gosh, look at this fish. Yeah, it was crazy.
Let's hear some of today's bite fishing reports. I see Midwest Outlaw, and Dustin's going to catch some of you guys on Facebook with some of these fishing reports. But I see Midwest Outlaw. He said he caught 120 keepers on Raccoon Lake. I guess that's in Illinois. Last weekend, fish seemed to be in 12 foot of water. Some structure through some were roaming water. Started out at 64 degrees. Cold front caused it to drop to 58, but didn't affect the bite. Awesome.
My man. Derek Martin says his report is catching staging fish on flats 5 to 7 feet of water, top hat jigs with 2-inch guppy gobbler. And then Ninja Slab Nasty asked, he said, who's better at shooting docks, Jig Slinger or Crappie Ninja? He needs to know now.
He already knows.
He already knows, don't he?
He already knows. Hey, let's just say for to be good, it's a tie.
Oh, okay, there we go. Now, guys, when I say Joe is very good, I don't want his head to get so big it don't fit on the screen. But this guy can dot your eye with the dang jig. He's real sharp at that dang dog shooting. I'll give him that much. Where I seen you do really well was when we were at Table Rock and we were looking at those fish just talking to each other on a boat, and I saw you shooting it, just not in the dock, but just shooting it at them. And you had that. Man, was it a 16th or 32nd with that split shot above it?
It was probably it was a 132nd.
Yeah, a 32nd, and he was floating that bad boy 15, 20 foot. One shot, one kill. It was hitting him right across the nose. So that's why I'm like, all right, this old man's okay. He's pretty good.
I see a lot of these hashtags coming up. They're hilarious. I love seeing them. Spawn sucks. Spawn be gone. These hashtags are great, and I'm 100% with every one of you guys. I'm so ready.
There's also been 2 questions about your gear. There's been 2 questions about your gear, Ninja. What dock rod do you use for shooting, and then what's your line and jig head setup for shooting docks?
All right. Well, I use Huckabee rods. I use a 6-shooter. I use a 6-shooter, and I use one called the 6-shooter is a 6-footer. and then the 6.6 is the Ninja. Okay, and that's what I use for shooting docks and casting at them. I use 4-pound test line K9, and I use an assortment of jigs. When I'm shooting a hair jig, I use a 1/32 on docks, and I use Delta jigs. I use these little hair jigs. They're really sharp. Can you see this?
Yep.
Can you see that booger right there?
Oh yeah, that
Right.
does look sharp.
And then this is the color that I for the lakes that actually I've caught them in Grenada. This same jig now, I've caught them
hang on,
all the way across
I'll tell 'em.
all the way across the country.
I'll tell
Okay,
them the name of
that
this one.
that's
called
called
Sugar Bug.
That's called a sugar bug.
Sugar Bug.
Okay, so that is made by Ricky Willis over in Gray, Georgia. And this rubber, you can catch 30 fish on it. You know what I mean? It stays on there good, but it sinks slower, you know. And that's my favorite color right there. I call it the Oconee Special. He's got it number 57. But I use a 4 sickle hook. See the little sickle hook there? Can you see that?
Oh yeah, we see it. We see it.
I like the sickle hook. I think it sticks in them good, and it seems to be very sharp. Yeah, I use when I'm using the 6-foot rod, I use 4-pound test K9. When I'm using the Ninja, it's 6.6. I use the 6-pound test.
Joe, have you ever tried shooting docks with a braided line? What's your thoughts on braid versus mono when it comes?
I do. The problem with braided line shooting docks, okay, if you're not accurate with it, you get caught on that post, and then you can't break it off. You know what I mean? I mean, I've used Crappie braid from K9. It's like a 5-pound test, but it's just so strong. You know, when you've got people fishing with you and stuff like that, you know, and you get it up underneath, then you got to go up underneath the dock to try to stick the rod in there and get it off. You know, and then you might spook the fish and stuff like that.
That's another question. Someone asked how you keep from getting hung up so much in docks. They try it getting hung up a lot. Well, that's all.
That's where the skills gets in there. You know what I mean? You've got to look underneath the dock and see the cross members and stuff like that to assess how deep you can go when you're fishing that dock. You know, if you don't have forward sonar, then you have to guess. You know, but you can still see the cross member going down in there, and you know, and you just got to guess on. You know,
honestly, too, that's where a really good rod is important, because sometimes filling a fish bite and filling a cross member are two different fillings. But if you have a good rod, you can tell when you bump over those instead of setting the hook into it.
What about the spinning reel? I mean, this is the business end of things. Of course, the pole's important, but also I would think a really good, what size spinning reel you like, what style. Tell us about the actual reel that you're using as far as shooting docks.
I use a 1000 series. I use a Fluger. Okay. I've been using Flugers forever. They seem to go the longest without any oiling and maintenance. You know what I'm saying? So they last a long time for me. I'm not going to say anything bad about any other reel company. I'm just going to say that the Flugers last a long time for me. So that's what I use.
Fair enough. I've got a question here. And this is a generic question and kind of goes, I guess, to anybody that wants to answer for you two guys. But this is, I can't actually read all the way. There's a bunch of abbreviations as far as the name on YouTube. But he said, just got a Trover with spot lock and a transducer. Is it better hooking a fish finder to the motor or having the transducer that is fixed on the boat? And that's, I think he's just talking about a side scan or, regular 2D sonar. That's what I'm pretty sure he's talking about. I don't even think they're talking about, forward facing sonar, but throw it out there, Joe. You've got the experience with this one too.
Well, I mean, if he's talking about forward facing, then I put it on the, I used to put it on the barrel of the motor of the trolling motor, but I've moved it up to the shaft, and I don't have any, I believe that's the way to go, because when you're bumping stuff, I think that you can scrape a transducer easier when it's down there on that motor instead of it being up on the shaft. If he's talking about a side scanning And normally the side scan, of course, is on the back of the boat. I guess the newer trolling motors like the Quest, and there's a couple other ones from Minn Kota there that have the built-in side scan in the motor, in your trolling motor side scan. But I haven't used that yet. I haven't connected mine yet. I've been using the for a month or 2 months. I've been using the Quest, the Minn Kota, and it's very quiet. I can't spook a fish. You know, I'd probably jump up on the boat to spook one. You know what I mean? They're just very quiet and they're not spooking.
Yeah.
But as far as going back to the transducer, you know, back there on the back of the boat with the side scan.
Yeah,
I agree.
Same here. I agree with that. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome. Hey, I don't want y'all to think that I'm trying to see how big my head is. I'm holding a phone. Those guys got a little setup going on over there. They can sit back a little, but I'm having to hold my phone to do this.
Yeah, I got some other news. I'm a Poppy ×2 this week. Hunter Chapel, my son, he does all the editing and all the brain work behind the podcast that we do every week. He just had his first baby boy, William Clay Chapel, weighed 7 pounds 7 ounces. So big congratulations.
Perfect.
Willie is here. Yeah. I'm very proud, Poppy.
Congratulations, man.
So he went
awesome feeling being a grandpa.
Absolutely. My favorite job so far.
There you go.
I think I've caught it with comments, guys. If you got a good comment, got a good question about shooting docks or anything like that, throw it up here. Dustin and I will catch up with it and actually read them out loud and see if we can get some answers for you.
Okay, here we go. Fishing Oconee and Sinclair at night. Doggone, I just lost the question. But fishing those two lakes at night. Do I need to shoot under the docks? I'm not sure if that's what he asked. I just lost it when it come off.
Okay, well, I'll answer that in somewhat. There's a lot more lights on Lake Sinclair. Yes, shoot under the dock and drag it out. But and see what you can do, you know, if the light's right there on the dock. But the best thing to do when you have a halo of light out there in front of a dock is throw it out into the dark and bring it into the into the light. Normally, the light will attract the shad, but the crappie are afraid of the striper and the hybrid to eat them. So they'll stay in the dark, hiding a little bit, and then they'll get in there and grab them shad when they come through. So cast your jig about 5 feet into the dark of the water and bring it into the light. You know what I mean? That's how I've had my best results.
Awesome.
Kaga would be able to tell you the best on that because that's he does a lot of that. You know, with light fishing. I don't really do that. You know, I run a grocery store 5 days a week. You know, so when I go I don't go fishing at night. You know, I fish in the daytime. I start early in the morning and then I fish till about 2 or 3, whatever time it takes, you know, to get the fish.
Here's a question that I've been waiting on is what do you do when a dock owner comes out on the dock and is mad because they don't like you shooting their dock? I was waiting to see if that was going to come out or not.
So who asked you that question?
Terry Newby.
Okay, that's my buddy right there now. Anyway, so I've had some strange things happen before. I've had a guy come out and drop his pontoon in the water and act like he's tuning up his motor and crank the motor up high speed. I've had him we call it the hammer dock, and this is why. Yeah. So the guy would come out there and sit there. He's got built a wooden bench that he built into the dock. And he'll sit out there and he'll have a hammer in his hand and act like he's hitting nails, you know what I mean? Trying to fix it up, just tapping on the dock. And I'll say, keep doing that, man. They're coming out from underneath the dock and I can catch them out here in open water.
Oh my God.
So that messes with his head. So, yeah, I mean, there's some people that don't like it, you know, especially the people that put brush out in front of it. They think they own the fish, you know, and I try to be good about it. You know what I mean? I'll just catch a few fish off of it and I'll back off, you know? But you know, so I've heard of some bad stories. Scott Williams over here in Georgia, he's had some bad guys come out and cuss, act a fool. You know what I mean? But you know,
I've had those instances as well, for sure.
Yeah, there's plenty of water out there. You can find other spots. You know, It's sort of aggravation. You wanna rub it into them a little bit and catch more fish off of it, but
that don't get you nowhere.
Nah, I'm too old for that mess.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I've seen some things too on around piers and docks that you're like, man, come on. But I always think about it, and a lot of times it's just not even worth the effort. If they're going to be that much of a, I just go to the next one.
Yeah.
And it's better off just finding somewhere else to fish for the most part.
Exactly.
Hey, maybe one of the craziest ones I've had, one of the craziest stories. I fished right up next to a dock for a while, and we were fishing it in the summer. And I load everything up. This is not a lie. I have clients to attest this. I start boating off, and in the back of my gunnel where my battery compartment is, I hear a cat meowing. It got off the dock and got in my boat. and it got in the back of my battery compartment, and I'm trolling off. I'm like, holy crap. So it comes out and
stole the guy's cat.
Who just starts cuddling on all of us. It had a little collar on with bells, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I turn around and I put it on the dock. It keeps trying to jump back in the boat. Dude, I felt so bad. I'm like, what if they're looking up and they see me have their cat? They think I'm stealing that thing.
They know how to buy it.
Yeah, over in Alabama, we used to have a dock that we called the cat dock, because every time you got close enough to the dock, this red tabby would come over and jump in the boat and hang out with you for a little while.
But
then it'd ease back over. And get out of the boat.
Hilarious. Yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen that before. I've seen a lot of dogs on docks and things that would come out there and bark at you. Different things. I've never seen
cat every time I go back to that dock, that cat would just be hanging out there. I don't know if it lived on the dock or what. I never did not see that thing on the dock. I could take you right now, and that cat would get in the boat.
I see Gary Scott. He said he caught a good limit yesterday shooting docks on Main Point, shooting a 1/32 ounce hair jig, 40 foot of water, 10 to 20 foot down. Also, when it goes back to this, Joe, you got somebody watching right now listening. I want you to kind of give them some words of wisdom when it comes to trying to learn how to shoot docks. What are some of the basic things they could get out there and help them improve to be able to shoot docks and catch fish?
Okay. Well, so what I did when I first started shooting docks 19 years ago, is I didn't know any docks. I didn't know the good docks at all, So I tried to fish. I found what depth they were biting in, and then I'd use my graph, okay, to see what depth I was in, and then I would fish every dock on a lake. I fished every dock, okay, and then I would mark the docks that were productive. The ones that were productive, I would go back, fish them again, and then you have to learn the different times of the different seasons and stuff like that. Which ones held the fish, which ones didn't, why,
Exactly.
you don't know that when you first start shooting docks and you don't have the right electronics. I mean, we're blessed now with what we have, because now if you have forward sonar, you can just look up underneath the dock and see if they're under there. But back in the day, you couldn't do that. You had to figure out which ones were the best docks, mark them, and then make you a little milk run. But it's all about I believe it's all about the depth of water and what it's close to. Does the person that owned the dock have it brushed up? Is it close to the channel? In other words, like if you have a 10-foot dock in the face of the dock, and it goes back in there, and it goes back to about 6 foot if you're on a ledge, but then it drops off into 18 foot real quick. You know what I mean? Then that one is like a ambush dock where the fish, there's always bait coming through there. If there's current, I think current has got a lot to do with it. Yesterday, our best docks, we caught like 1.5 pound fish, and our best, and that's post spawn. But our best docks were ones that had some current going through it, that they were holding the most fish, because they're waiting on that bait to come through there. So whatever attracts that bait the best up underneath those docks is where they're at. I mean, that's where they want to be. And
I love a dock with current. I love a dock with current. I love a dock with current, because when you drop it, it'll float your bait right into where they're at.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about if it goes back to them?
Well, yeah. So we don't shoot docks very often, but if I do fish one, I'll drop on the edge of it, and if there's a current, it'll pull my bait into those fish, if that makes sense.
Right. It seems
Yeah.
like when the current is being pulled, the bite turns on. I think it's because the shad get disoriented, and
Yep.
it makes it easier for those crappie to get them.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, you have to set up your own milk run. I call it a milk run. Like 20 to 30 docks that
Mhm.
normally hold fish. Okay, and then you go back to those when you go to the lake, whatever lake you're fishing. I mean, I've got a milk run on Logan Martin in Alabama. I've got one on Lake Lanier in Georgia, Sinclair, Jackson, Oconee, Blackshear. I mean, I've got milk runs that I've learned on all the different lakes. Fishing, putting in a lot of time. I mean, it takes a lot of time to learn the docks that are
Oh
productive.
yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
you've got to
Do you
go.
drop
You've got to go.
waypoints with them?
What's that?
Do you drop waypoints on particular docks and
Well,
do
that's what I
different
meant
things
by
like that?
marks. That's what I meant by marks.
Hmm.
Okay,
Okay.
yes, I put waypoints on every when back in the day, you know what I mean? I would just go by, and after I caught some fish on a dock, if it was good, it was good, then I'd mark it, you know what I mean? I'd put waypoint on it. And then
Okay.
you got your milk run, so that's the easiest way to do it. But you've got to go out there and put the time in to be a good dock shooter. Well, to catch a lot of fish, you can be a good dock shooter, but if you ain't catching fish, then you're not a good dock shooter. You know.
Yeah.
Whenever
Oh,
I fish lakes that had a lot of docks on it, to me, one of the easiest ways that I found to identify a good dock is the ones that were barricaded. If
The
you ever
ones that
seen
they
a dock
board up.
boards and they wanted to protect these little spots,
oh yeah.
whether it be
Yeah, cause
fence or ropes or different
Full of
things
them.
to kind of make it really difficult,
that's
it
right.
was
That's right.
almost like a flashing light on top of that dock screen. These fish are under this pier or under this
Oh
dock.
yeah.
This flashing neon
Hey,
sign
and they know them fish know where we can't get. I promise you, they know where
Oh
Oh
we
yeah.
yeah.
can't get a jig.
Well, really, that's the way that they with a friend of mine named Jody Stevens came up with my nickname, the Ninja, because he acted like I could. He said, "Man, you when I was shooting them docks between those cracks, I mean shooting the jig between those boards, you know what I mean?" He
Yeah.
said, "God dang, man, I can't believe you do that. You the ninja." You know what I mean? Like I was throwing a star through. I
Yeah.
mean, like
uh,
a star through there. But yeah, that's where my nickname came up a long time
that's
ago.
awesome.
And
Yeah.
there's my rule of thumb is if I can't get the crappie out of there, depending on how wide the fish is, you know what I mean, then I'm not going to shoot. I'm not going to shoot it in a 1 inch crack because you can't pull the fish out of there.
Man,
Hmm.
but it's
Because what I
hard
do
not
is
to shoot it.
I'll pull them up there, and I try to pull them real easy through them bowl. You got to wait. They'll be flopping. You know what I mean? You got to wait so they get on their side where they'll slide out of them boards.
Man,
But
I
yeah, they
know
try they
exactly what you're
try to
talking about.
board it up, and they try to do different things, like you said, the
Hmm.
ropes and stuff like that to stop you from getting in there. But what ends up happening is you look with your forward sonar and you see all them dang fish in there. So then you go to the back of the dock to try to
Yeah.
find. Yeah, they got you now. You got them really investigating. They got you really investigating those docks,
Yeah.
and spending more time on them than you would have if it was open.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You might overlook it. You might say, well, that one don't, I mean, it's pretty open. Doesn't look like they're trying to protect anything. And that's kind of a lot of how I see it. Well, they're over there. They're trying to protect something in that pier or that dock. I need to investigate it more. And usually, like you said, that's where you'll find them at.
Well,
That was,
usually when they're making that kind of effort to stop you from fishing it, they've got brush out front of it.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So then you just end up catching the fish off their brush.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you had to describe your perfect dock, what would it consist of? The size and even the
A
brush up
floating.
underneath it.
Yeah, we had a question: is you like a floating dock better or one connected to the ground better?
It really all depends on man,
Location.
there's so many variables on it. It's hard to say. Yeah, a bit. When you have a huge dock, normally they're congregated in one little area anyway. You know what I mean? So it doesn't really have to be a huge dock. I mean, 20 by 20 is big, way big enough. You know what I mean? It all depends on if it's close to a drop off. To me, I mean, and it depends on if you're talking about, because there's when I was started dock shooting and everything like that. everybody thought that you could only do it like in the springtime,
Yeah.
and sometimes in the summer and stuff like that. You can shoot docks year round as long as you follow the fish and the depth that they're in, and then you go to the docks, and you have to know where they're at and what they're doing. So back to your 10 to 12 foot docks, perfect. And with a little current and some brush around it or good structure underneath it, I find that the ones that have more braces and stuff like that are harder to shoot, hold a lot of fish because, of course, that's a habitat for them underneath there. I mean, they can hide from the prey, and I think that the reason why I'm saying the current and around a drop off is because I think that you might get more shad there,
Yeah.
for some, when I fish tournaments over in Lake Fork, where they put out alfalfa bales, that attract the shad, and then they sit there and they with a long pole and they're catching them off their piers,
Mhm.
but I mean, I've seen that before, so I know that there's different ways to bait um the shad, and that creates a good dock too,
We
Yeah.
got Chris Williams asking here on YouTube. He's asking, what size screen would you recommend that would be best for live scope?
hmm.
I know what everybody's thinking is the best that you can afford as far as the size goes. I think a
Well,
good round size is going to be a 12 inch. I mean, that's
10,
just
10 to
yeah,
12. 10 to 12 is perfect.
I think a 12-inch Mega Live, Humminbird Solix, or the Garmin Live Scope. I think the
Mhm.
12-inch is plenty,
Yeah.
But Chris, I know you just got that 16-inch, and I'm gonna help you get it dialed in. You know what I mean? I just ain't got. I ain't. I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get me a 16-inch too.
We've
You
got
know
another
what?
good question.
Let me tell you why I don't think that I want a 16-inch. It's because I shoot, and about once a day I shoot that screen. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But
I hear you.
and then I'm having to shoot, and I sit. I've got me and another guy. I got the double seat there, the double seat mount thing, and then I've got the two seats there. And sometimes when I'm shooting, I'm sitting down in there, and I hit the screen. I hit the top of the screen.
Yeah.
So it would just be more of an obstacle to get the 16-inch. I think you could see plenty with a 12-inch screen.
For sure. I got it forever with a 10-inch screen and did just fine as well. So you can still see with a 10 if you wanted to save a little bit of money, but the
Right.
12 is definitely the best. Um, Here's another question for you. What about underspins? Do you use a jig, just regular, or jig heads? What plastic on it? So what jig heads do you use, and do you use any spinners on them too? From Buck Wayne.
No, I don't ever use a spinner when I'm shooting a dock. I don't need anything to slow slow the jig from going under there. When I'm using a jig head, I mean, I showed y'all earlier this jig head,
Mhm.
okay, that rounded head, okay. Um, I found that the hatchet head, you can skip it under a dock, but it sometimes
Yeah.
it'll dive in, and it'll grab, and it won't go in there good. I found that the round heads will go up, they'll bounce and go up underneath the dock better. So I use a round headed, I use the eye hole jig. They make me a 132nd. This is an old man, almost a 90-year-old man makes these for me. So I've been using them from the get go.
Gotcha.
But as far as plastics, I've been using thermocline lures out of Fort Worth, Texas for a long time, about 5 or 6 years. Here's the little shad. I like small profile baits.
No, yeah.
This is a little shad. I mean, everybody's got a shad, but here's the little
Oh yeah.
calls it a phantom. You know what I mean? It's a 1.5 inch. These blackfish are completely different
Yeah.
than a whitefish. They're a little more finicky. I think it was.
Oh yeah.
I've thrown it. I've thrown it white crappie before, or white crappie, whatever y'all call them. But I've thrown it white crappie before, and they'd come 3 or 4 foot to hit a jig. That ain't that's not the case with a you know, I don't just dock shoot. You know what I mean? I don't just dock shoot. Okay, I'm good at dock shooting, but that's not, you know, I'm looking for brush. I'm looking for open water fish. I fish it all, and I use about the same thing. I use a 1/32 when the fish are up at high in the water column, and if they're lower in the water column, then I'll throw a I'll either throw the 1/32 and a with a split shot on it, but I've gotten away from that a little bit. Kegel has showed me, you know, I knew how to do it, but I'm just saying I've watched Kegel fish some, you know. Well, I fished with him, and he does real well with like a 1/16 thrown at him. And I believe what he's saying is true. I think that he said this last week in y'all's podcast or the week before, whenever you had him. I think it was the week before, that if you use a split shot, you might not feel the contact as well. You know what I mean? And so I've tried it a lot. You know what I mean? And I can use it both ways. But when you're guiding, okay, it's a lot easier for the client to, especially when there's a lot of shad in the area and stuff. When you're casting at them, it's easier to pick up that split shot in that jig. Two things sinking is a lot easier to see than one thing sinking. You know what I mean? So and then they can it's easier for them to do it. You know, a beginner or somebody learning how to use it. You know.
Jonathan,
did I answer that question?
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jonathan's asking. He says, when you're fishing in the boat, how do you keep your boat from actually hitting the dock? Spot lock or put an anchor down? What do you prefer as far as keeping from bumping into somebody's dock?
I never. It's all about foot control. I never use spot lock. I just don't do it. You know what I mean? Now, I don't anchor. I've never anchored. You know, so I wouldn't even know what. I don't do that. So I mean, I just use the foot control trolling motor, and I keep the boat right. You know, I face it into the wind, if you can. Sometimes you have to make sacrifices. Sometimes you know that there's fish under a dock, but if the wind is blowing into the dock, you might not be able to fish that dock. Now, I fished in a tournament on Lake Fork. I fished in a Crappie Masters tournament where Josh Reynolds, okay, held a rod out and he held me off the dock. The wind was going into the dock, okay, and he held a rod. No, he held the net. We had a long net, and he held the net out to where I could shoot the dock. So I mean, there's ways to do it, but the wind's always a factor. But you've got to select the right docks as you're coming to them with the wind in your favor. Is what I'm saying. You know, but all trolling motor, all foot control.
All right, I seen Richard Crawford coming on here. I got to give him a quick shout out. He's talking about Jerry Hancock's 16-inch screen was great when he went to Lake Fork, but he saved my bacon at Grand Lake here. He lives here on the lake and met me at the ramp the other day. I was out of all my grubs for fishing for spawning fish on the bank. He brought me a pack of hyper grub Bobby Garland's. Saved my day. So I appreciate it, buddy. Hey, I had a group of 3 guys. We were all down there at the ramp waiting. I said, I got a guy delivering a package. We got to wait on him. And he brought some down, man. I really appreciate that. And I'm about halfway through that package. So if you could bring me another one tomorrow, no, I'm just joking. But I appreciate it very much. You did save me there.
I've got a good question. This might not have been discussed on today's bite, but do you have a special recipe that you like cooking crappie with?
Ooh, that's off subject, ain't it?
I like it.
I do too.
Who?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Who's going to answer it?
You are.
Everybody.
You know, I have a special recipe. I guess I can go through it with you real quick. Okay, so Corningware, you spray some Pam in it. You lay the crappie in it. You know, fillets all the way through. And then my mom taught me this when I was little. And she didn't teach me with crappie. She was teaching me with like red snapper and stuff like that. Because we lived in South Florida. I grew up in South Florida and bass fish forever, you know, from when I was 8 years old till, you know, probably 47. But anyway, so You lay the fillets in there. You put mayonnaise on top of it. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Lemon juice. Just
Hmm.
a small coat of mayonnaise across the top. Okay. Then lemon juice. Whatever spices you want. And then you put tomatoes, onions. I slice lemon, and I layer put enough, about 2 lemons across the top of the pan, and then I put breadcrumbs on top of it,
You've got my attention now, buddy.
and then I put to give that crusty effect. You know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
and this is a lot more healthy than frying fish. But
Yeah.
anyway, so and then I put the seasoning on top, and then I put a lot of butter on top of it. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And then I bake it in the oven at 350 with aluminum foil on the top. Okay, for about preheat the oven, of course, and then I 5 to 7 minutes I bake it, and then I put it on broil, and I take the aluminum foil off and brown it, and
Unbelievable.
that'll cook up those the onions and the tomatoes.
Yeah, that's gourmet fish right there, folks.
Yeah, I
We're
don't.
gonna have to talk about recipes more because I've never heard that one
Yeah,
before.
I can't say I even thought that was coming out of your mouth,
Uh-uh.
buddy. That was
Oh yeah,
way
and I
above.
and I and I and I put some mushrooms in there too.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm Italian. You know what I mean? I forget
That
about
sounds.
it.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
got some
Forget
pasta
about it.
there somewhere too, don't you?
Forget
Hey,
about
do you salt it like this?
it. Yeah. Bam.
Man,
But
no,
yeah,
that's
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 good.
that, that's
Well,
that's one way.
I can't top that. I mean, there ain't no way. I mean, gosh. I just ate a crazy recipe the other day, but I can't remember the exact ingredients. I want to say ranch and sour cream, kind of the same style, putting it on a pan, baking it, and I crumbled potato chip lays over it and did that pretty thick, and it gave you a crunch to it when you ate it, and it was great with 2 or 3 different cheeses. Of course, had to melt some cheese on it, so it was pretty good that way. But I don't think you can beat just good old fried crappie. It's just hard to beat a good fried piece of crappie. That's my favorite. Grab your Louisiana, the blue box, and go take that crappie right out of the water, right into that mix, fry it. It's pre-made. You're ready to rock and roll. Now, here's the tip that Ken Robertson showed me that makes the fish just this much better. Is take the potatoes, wash them, cut them into potato wedges. Wait, no, this wasn't Ken. This was I
Come
showed Ken
on,
this.
man.
Yeah, I showed Ken this. Now Ken does it, but
now
we
you
cut
take
the
out the credit.
yeah, cut potatoes into potato wedges, and then
Hmm.
wash the potatoes and dip them in the batter you batter the fish with, and fry them the same way. Those would be the best potato wedges you ever eat. This was Bo Boware that showed me that. But yeah, those were the best potato wedges. They were as good as the crappie. Just a good tender potato wedge
Come on.
with the seasoning over them. I'm telling you, it was so good. So there's your little tip on your potatoes with the fried fish.
With the batter, I like the Zanderans,
Yeah.
Southern, and I also like, and I'm not saying this because I fish in his tournaments, but that Mr. Crappie's got some good batter too.
Yeah, well,
I mean, it really is good.
yeah.
One of my favorite ways, and John Godwin actually showed me this a couple of years ago when he came to spent the weekend crappie fishing with me on Lake Washington. But he would take sour cream and season it up with your Zatarans or whatever you want. Put you some
Louisiana.
seasoning inside Louisiana.
Yeah.
Throw your crappie fillets inside the sour cream, then take it out and put your batter on it, then fry it.
Yeah.
Man, it just comes out
See,
terrific.
Brad, all I can think about is that smoked crappie dip. That's what I got to
Mhm.
try. That stuff you keep saying, that
That
smoked
stuff is
crappie.
awesome.
I got to try it.
That
Well,
stuff
I've
is
been to Alaska a couple times, and that recipe I just gave y'all works really good on halibut and salmon.
Oh, do you
Mhm.
eat it just for the halibut?
Yeah, that
That was
halibut. You
good.
ever had halibut?
No, but I hear it's
Oh
amazing.
man, that's a great fish, and so is sea bass.
They say that yields the most meat, halibut. Like if it's an 80 pounder, you're going to get like 60 pounds of meat
Right. Yeah.
because they have. I don't know why, but that's what I just heard. I just took clients out that did a lot of halibut fishing.
It's awesome fish.
Yeah. Jerry Hancock says, "Hey, Joe."
Yeah, like I did last night. Last week.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's up, big
Yeah.
dog?
Bucky's asking. I guess we go for each one of us. He said, "Do you use minnows very much?"
You know what? No,
No.
never.
Man, I'd love to say the same, but I do. I will have a minnow bucket on board.
I
make
very
fun of
rarely
me,
use minnows.
whatever.
Very rarely. Will on occasion, but not. You could probably less
Count
than
on
10
one
times
hand.
all year.
I'm trying to
Yeah.
think of the last time I used a minnow. I
My
think
God.
about 20 years ago. 20 years ago, me and this old man used to
You're
Tom
kidding.
Lyons.
Whatever.
We used to
Whatever.
drop minnows, like did a drop shot on the bottom of this reservoir, Lake Varner over in Covington, Georgia. And we used to drop shot them in the wintertime and hit the bottom and just lift it up a little bit, about a foot,
Yeah.
and we'd catch them that way. But
You've used
that's
them in
about
tournaments. You've used them in tournaments.
me.
Yeah.
I ain't never used the fish. I've never used them.
Even in a
I've
tournament.
I've never used. I've never
Joe, your
used.
nose is growing.
No, I've never used a minnow in a tournament. I promise you.
I'm just teasing. Okay, I believe you, I guess.
I mean,
So,
I haven't.
yeah, whatever.
I got a
Look,
question. How far away are you
Yeah,
shooting the duck?
whatever. Oh my gosh! All right.
Anyways, Brad, sorry.
How far away are you from the dock when you try to shoot it? What's the ideal distance to be away from the dock?
Probably about 12 foot. You know, about 10 to 12 foot.
I was gonna
So
say a
that you
rod
can
and a
get
half.
so that you can get the angle right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, you're pointing down anyway. So if you get too close to the dock, I'm trying to show you my arm. But if you get too close to the dock and then you're shooting down, and you just drive it into the water and you can't go far. So you got to get back far enough to where you can get an angle at it, where you can go parallel up underneath the dock.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Dude, that's black belt stuff. We're learning today. We're
Whoa.
learning. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just most dock shooters, you learn that, you
Oh
learn
yeah.
you learn all that kind of stuff as you're trying to practice shooting up underneath the dock. The
Do
best
you
way to
bel-
do it is to practice a while in your yard or whatever, and like shooting it in a bucket, a 5-gallon bucket and stuff like that.
The reason you're shooting a hair jig a lot, is that because you don't like your jig sliding down on you, or what?
No, I don't use a hair jig. When I was talking about the hair jig, I was talking about the casting at them,
Oh, okay,
shooting
gotcha.
out at them in
So
open
when you use
water
the
and on
plastic, do
brush.
you super glue it on there, or you just use it? You just go with it?
No, see that little jig right there? It's got that little barb on it. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah,
don't know if you can
it
even
holds
see
on there.
that. It's so
Yeah.
small,
You can,
but here, let me see my shirt. Okay. But
we can
anyway,
see
there's a
it.
little barb on there, and that holds it. Cagle, when me and him fished in Alabama, he had one that had a screw on it. And dude, I mean, everybody talks about soft plastic, and it's too soft and it's too hard, this, that, and the other. But when you screw that joker down on that dang screw head, that screw, man, it lasts forever. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? You can fish a whole tournament with one rubber
Yeah.
jig.
Yeah.
But yeah, those things work really well too. They're
Hey,
hard.
Jerry Hancock has a great pointer here for dock shooters. He said he likes to practice shooting under his wife's car, that little gap there where your car sets to the ground. You guys can go to your wife's car and practice shooting your jig up under there. That's a
Yeah,
genius idea if you really think
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
yeah.
Or your neighbor's car.
Me and Richard Malcolm, the guy was asking about earlier, we call him the jig slinger.
it. Yeah.
We used to try to shoot it in tailpipes.
Oh, there you go. Even better.
Yeah, that's a little more accuracy.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
Brad Edgar has got a question here. He says, when you see an open water fish, how do you go about approaching it or chasing it down? What's your approach to? You see a fish
Well,
out, so let's say at 60 feet. How are you going to go to it and try to catch it at that point?
okay, well, I ease up on them, and I keep bringing the graph back. You know what I mean? So normally I'll only come into about 30 foot. I'll bring it back to about 30 foot to make the target bigger, and plus so you can see that jig easier. But yeah, after I get done quivering, when I see that open water fish, I that's what I do. I mean, I like it, boy. I mean, we're sitting here talking about crappie fishing, man. There ain't nothing I like better than crappie
Yeah,
fishing now.
you can't wait to go tomorrow, can you?
Oh man, I like it. I get jiggy with it. Getting old jiggy with it.
No puns intended.
When
Right.
you're casting out to some of these open water fishing, I kind of seen it last couple of days while I've been fishing, is you shoot to that fish, cast to it, whatever. and let's say he's 10 foot deep. Do you want that jig to drop straight down on top of him, or come
No.
in front of him and then come to him and drop? Which kind of your favorite approach to actually, once you
Okay,
see
so
that fish,
I
you shoot it
I
out there and
cast
it's coming
about
down to him?
I cast about 2 or 3 foot past it, and I'll let
Mhm.
it sink down so that I can get the jig and I can bring it right over their nose. I mean, I'll cast it right past them, and I'll bring it over and I'll let it sink down to their almost to their level, about a foot over them, and I'll let it, and then I'll just let it come down real slow. And once I see them start to move, once they wake up and see it, you know what I mean, then I'll
Yeah.
just keep it running. I'll just keep it moving away from them. Okay. And I'll bring it on up. And I got to say his name one more time. Cagle showed me how to do that a long time ago. And it works. I mean, when you run it away from, and of course y'all do a lot of long pulling and stuff like that. I've never done that. Now that hurts me in tournaments. Now when I'm fishing tournaments and that water gets real muddy, that killed me in that one Grenada tournament, Dustin, and you know it
Yeah,
because
I know it. I know it.
I was on them the day before, boy, and I
I
was
know you
smashing
was.
them, and I was shooting it out 30, 40 feet out there, and I was nailing them 20 feet away from me, you know. So of course I'm thinking to myself then, oh, I'm not going to spook these fish. You know, everybody's talking about Grenada before, you know, a year or two before the last couple of years about the boat pressure and about how them fish run from them. Well, my technique works perfect for that because they don't never see me coming. I mean, I can
Mhm.
throw it out there 30 feet and hook them, and they don't ever know the boat's there. You understand what I
Mhm.
mean? But
Exactly.
then all of a sudden the mud comes in, and you can't run it through them. You can't run it slow enough over them for them to see the bait. So that's when the long rods work a lot better in dirty water. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where y'all can
Exactly.
just aggravate that fish into biting. You know, whereas when you're casting or shooting to them like I do, um, I can get up close, but the closer you get, you know, I mean, I vertical on them sometimes. I mean, you know, now that I've got my power brakes, I won't be doing it. But
Yeah.
so yeah, I got the Raptors put on with my power brakes, so that's going
Oh
to work
boy.
well,
No.
Now
and I can
listen, this those
back
Raptors.
up a little bit.
Now you can anchor down on those docks and just shoot and not have to move at all.
Well, if the dock's
If they're
shallow enough,
shallow enough. Yeah, if they're
yeah,
shallow
but
enough. You
know.
didn't skimp and get like short talons, did you?
I got the 8 footers just because
Oh.
my garage is only 7 foot high, and
Oh.
I was worried about not being able to
Yeah.
put my boat
Mhm.
Oh.
in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I do
I had to
double
do it that
garage.
way.
I got
But
Got
you.
a question about line. Clear line or high vis? Which one do you prefer?
I like the high vis because it's a lot easier for me to see when I'm shooting a dock. Well, anytime, it's a lot easier, and seen I've never seen the where it bothers the fish. You know what I'm saying? Even in clear water, high vis, I can't see it when it gets underwater. I don't how the fish do it. You can tell now a lot of myths about things. Okay, have changed with the invent of
Oh,
forward
yeah.
fishing. You really see what the fish do,
Mhm.
and how they react to everything with forward fishing.
Guys, also real quick, we're going to stay on here a few minutes longer, but if you haven't hit the thumbs up yet, I think we're about 118. I know you guys are still watching. I know you can hit that thumbs up, whether you're on the TV watching or on your laptop or whatever you're watching with. Take us 1 minute, hit the thumbs up. Really appreciate everybody as well. If you haven't hit subscribe on YouTube, guys, we're right there at 12,000 followers, subscribers. Go ahead and hit subscribe. It definitely helps us out, helps us grow. We can't do this show without everybody's support. I see Buck even commenting on here tonight. We really appreciate these kind of comments as far as it's helping you guys out. I've gotten so many messages this past week about different people that they went out long line for the first time and having a lot of good luck, or using live scope, getting better with it, some of the tips and tricks that we've shown you guys, and even shooting docks tonight. We're here for you guys. We want to help you grow to become even better crappie fishermen. I know I listen and to all the different guests that I get to talk to, and don't yell again, Dustin.
You caught me.
But I busted you. But definitely thank you guys. Without Bobby Grown Baits, Dustin and I won't be able to do today's bite. So definitely show these
Absolutely.
guys some love. You won't regret it either. We catch a lot of fish day in and day out with Bobby Garland Baits. You can look them up on lurenet.com. Use the discount code Crappie Connection 15. Get you 15% off all the good stuff. Got a lot of good products coming down the pipeline. Can't wait to show you guys this summer some of the new stuff that's coming out. So just stay tuned with us. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Turn your notifications on. We do Today's Bite every Tuesday night, 7 o'clock Central Standard Time. We have all kind of good guests. Man, the guests are what makes this show, and the information like Joe's throwing out here tonight, little tidbits. Everything starts adding up. It starts adding up week after week, and I've become a better crappie fisherman from different guys as well. And even some of the comments I read on here. Thank you guys for joining us every single week. You guys help us more than you can imagine.
For sure.
Had Mr. Kenneth, he even messaged me yesterday. He's a loyal watcher every week. I know Dustin even knows him as well. He's like, how can I help out you guys? And all I said was, just let Bobby Garland Baits know how much you appreciate us coming on here every Tuesday night. I'm sure they would love to hear that you love watching it. So thank you guys for joining us every single week as well.
Yep.
I think
and Joe, thanks for hopping on here tonight too, buddy. Taking time out of your day.
I had a good time with y'all. I had a good time with you. I would like to say one more thing.
Yeah.
Okay, get it out, buddy.
You know, when I shot docks, I mean, back before the Ford sonar, you know, there wasn't nothing better than watching that line jump. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
When you had it and you didn't know it was coming, the anticipation of that bite. You know, sure. the Ford sonar is cool, and it's really a neat thing, and I like it in open water. But when I'm shooting a dock, I'll look to see if them fish are under there, and then I'm not looking underneath there with that Ford sonar and watching the jig drop down and dragging it out to see if the fish will come and hit it. I'd rather just watch that line, and I think that will make you a better fisherman if you learn to watch the line when you're shooting docks and get that bite that way.
I agree. I like it.
You know, there's so many different ways to catch crappie, and that's what makes it so enjoyable for me. If there's a day that I have a customer and he says, I don't care anything about live sonar, let's just go out and fish traditional, or let's go spider rigging. Guys, take the time, learn some different techniques. Dock shooting is definitely one. If you haven't done it yet, you want to get out there and try this technique. It will put fish in the boat. And like Joe was saying tonight, kind of learn your docks, make waypoints. And I kind of fed Joe that line because I knew automatically that he dropped waypoints, but I wanted him to say that, I dropped waypoints even on a dock.
Well, I was saying marks, but that's what I meant was waypoint.
I knew he was going to say he dropped waypoints. Learn how to really drop waypoints. And my advice, even on that, even to go a little extent further, name some of them. If you got a little tricky name that you and your buddies know, put it on that waypoint. Chicken wire pier or dock or whatever. Even color code them. Start color coding your waypoints, and you'll become a better fisherman. Just keep adding to your arsenal and growing it more and more, and you're going to become a better dock shooter, better live scoper, better spider rigger, and that's what you're doing.
Better catcher. Catch them fish. That's what it's all about.
Catching these fish, man. It's addicting. If you're just getting in the sport of crappie fishing, let me tell you something. You're in the right sport. We're here to help you guys out and learn even more, but it's very addicting. I will warn you now.
Oh, yeah. Once you start catching them. I mean, that's really the reason why I got away from bass fishing, because you'd go out and catch 5 to 10, 15 bass. You thought, you felt great about it. But there was a lot of times you got out there with the change of weather and stuff like that. You got skunked bass fishing.
Yeah.
But then you go out crappie fishing and you catch 50 to 100 fish. I mean, dog, I like to bite. You know what I mean? I like just to bite, any kind of fish. I've fished for a lot of different things in my life, salt water, and fresh water.
They're all fun.
Yeah. Oh man, but getting a bunch of bites is more fun.
Yeah. We mentioned him earlier here. Tomorrow we got a new podcast coming out, and it's with Mr. Eric Cagle and Patrick Stone of Grenada. And during that podcast, it was filmed up at Grizzly Jig back in I guess February it was. And we talk about different techniques on how to catch crappie in the spring. And guys, let me tell you, it was a very fun podcast for me. We got to talk about, like we talked about tonight, long poling them and also casting to some of these springtime fish. it's a good podcast. Definitely hit that subscribe and make sure you watch it. It's going to drop tomorrow afternoon at 5 o'clock, and it's called Different Ways to Catch Them During the Spawn, I believe, or Spring, one of the two. And that was Hunter's job to name it, but it drops tomorrow afternoon. It's going to be a real good podcast, and I actually even lined up next week's show as far as today's bite with Patrick Stone of Grenada, and we're going to talk about some of the ways that he catches them up on the used to be the big four, now it's the big three, I guess. But we're going to talk to Patrick Stone next week on Grenada Lake and Enid and Sardis, more or less. And I know Patrick, I seen him last week actually fishing another lake that I got on as well. We can let that secret out.
I got one for you, Brad. How about the new Boat Arc lake that just opened? Have you seen it?
No.
There's a
my
new
buddy
lake.
made that. My buddy helped build that lake. Russell Gates, baby, old slab nasty.
Really? See, I seen
he did.
So
he knows where the stuff's at.
Man.
Is there fish in it?
Dude, they're catching 8, 9, 10-pound bass out of it. I don't know about the crappie, but I know they're catching some hammer bass out of there, I think.
Really? That big?
We'll have to get Slab Nasty on here and spill the news on that one.
Yeah. How long has the lake had water in it?
Man, it's only been a couple years, 2-3 years.
Really?
Yeah.
I think I read there's been some big old. I mean, I think I'm
about 3, maybe max 4 years, but I think just like 2-3 years.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Hey, yeah, somebody said.
Oh, really? Okay, so they're gonna keep it hidden for a while.
Yeah.
That's the right thing to do.
Jerry said they heard they're smoking crappie on Boat Arc out there. Huh? That's crazy. I gotta check. We got a new lake. A new lake.
Well, Brad, I'll ask you a question. As far as a white crappie, you know, how long does it take for it to get to be? I guess of course it depends on the forage, but how long does it take for a white crappie to get a pound?
You know,
about 3 years.
14 to 16 inches fish. I want to say is like 5 to 7 years old.
You know, around here, I would say to be a pound fish, you're looking at about 1.5 years.
That's it?
Wow.
That's it. They're going to grow pretty fast.
That's crazy.
Because I think those shad, I mean, our shad are real small. I mean, they're like 2 inches, you know. So I think that it depends on how big that shad is also.
1.5 years, 2 years.
What's that?
I figured it.
About 1.5 years to 2 years.
That's crazy. See, here it'd take a lot longer. I think it's 3 years to get 10 inches. That'd be like.
So how old is the 3-pound crappie?
You know, I guess it would depend on the lake. I would say 6 plus.
6, 7 years?
Yeah,
6, 7 years.
Or better.
Wow.
The bad thing about these fish in these lakes, according to some of the biologists, was they grow extremely fast, but they die extremely young as well. So they're not going to grow to, you know, the 10, 12 years. They're going to grow to 6, 7, 8 years old and
die off.
Hey, I'll tell you what. When we caught a monster crappie at Grand Lake here last year or 2 years ago now, I've got to check in with him. He took the thing out of its head to see how old it was. It was 17 3/4 3-pounder. That's a monster for this lake. So we'll see how old that was. I need to ask him. He sent it in. We'll just get that. Yeah,
guys, we're gonna get off here tonight, but till next Tuesday night, we'll be back. Like I said, got some good stuff coming down the pipelines for you guys. Especially thanks to Joe for coming on here tonight. Joe, if somebody's wanting to go on the guide trip with you out there in Georgia, how would they get a hold of you?
Well, you can either Google Crappie Ninja Guide Service, or my phone number is 706-819-3515. I only do Thursdays and Sundays. That's my 2 days off from my grocery store. But I'd be glad to have anybody to come on out. I can put you on some nice fish, black crappie. We can we'll be either shooting docks, or we'll be casting at them, or throwing pitching at brush piles and stuff. So that's what we do in the summertime. Well, there's standing timber in one of the lakes, so that's a lot of fun.
Well, guys, I appreciate everybody, and we will see you guys next Tuesday night. And check out the new podcast coming out tomorrow. Until next week, we got Brad Chappell. Holla.
Got Mustache here.
Thanks for having me, and I hope I helped somebody.
Hey, thanks, buddy.
Bye.
Be good. Appreciate you guys.